Hey guys, welcome back. I've got a relatively short one for you today, but it's something I felt I just had to cover and share with you all. Carrier Wing Ypsilon. This is one of those small one-man dev team projects that looks like it's going to deliver something that I think will be really solid and worth checking out. At least that's how I feel from my first impressions of it. And before we get too far into this, the game currently has an itch.io page that's available to the public. So if you're on PC and want to get hands-on with the pre-release and try it out for yourself, by all means, do so. I'll throw a link in the video description. Now, this isn't my first experience with this particular dev, Quackpond Games. About 10 months back, we covered another title, Gearbits, which is sort of like Armored Core at home, but in all the right ways. If you haven't already checked it out, I highly recommend doing so. The game is great fun and is 100% worth it. Just like the sponsor of today's video, Flexispot. I gotta tell you guys, if you're interested in high quality, affordable office products, look no further. As someone who spends a lot of time sitting at a computer for both work and play, maintaining proper ergonomics is absolutely essential in order to avoid unnecessary strain, which is a killer for both efficiency and performance. It's just that when you look at how much a proper ergonomic chair can cost these days, it's easy to see why a lot of gamers skimp out on this. But thankfully, Flexispot is here to help with their all-new Ergo X Pro ergonomic office chair. This thing is packed with features to ensure your sessions, whether working or gaming, are comfortable and long-lasting, and all at an incredibly affordable price. Adaptive moving lumbar support, fully adjustable backrest, headrest, and armrests that also recline with you, might I add, a 3-position tilt lock mechanism. Heck, this thing even has a footrest for when you just want to kick back with a controller in hand. Trust me when I say that this thing is incredibly comfortable. My work, gaming, and editing sessions while using this have been awesome. I've had no pain or discomfort of any kind, and as someone who's suffered from RSI in the past, most likely from having poor ergonomics while gaming for a lot of my young adult life, that's saying something. If you're in the market for a new chair, look no further. I cannot recommend the Ergo X Pro enough. Check out the link in the video description below to find out just how affordable comfort can be. Alright, back to the video. So, what is Ypsilon? Well, as the title suggests, the game is highly inspired by many of the arcade flight games of old. Of course, the biggest of these being Ace Combat. And keep in mind, everything you're going to see here is a representation of the game in a pre-release state. Even though I found that what we have so far is really well polished, there will definitely be some changes that occur, so keep an eye out for a full release video review whenever that happens. But okay, let's talk about the actual game. You take on the role of a mercenary pilot who's been hired by the Royal Navy. Your goal? Fight back against some evil space pirates who've taken control of a moon in the system. We're not really going to go too far into story details here, but in between missions, there is a narrative that plays out that you're presented with in these sort of scrolling text-style sequences that explain the mission or situation at hand. After a brief introduction and setup, you're sent out on your first sortie, and in typical Ace Combat fashion, your first mission is an easy one. Intercept enemy bombers. Right away, the game starts to establish the sort of aesthetics and visuals you're going to be experiencing, with this shot of a carrier-class ship launching a fighter and then prompting you for takeoff yourself. If you're familiar with Ace Combat or similar games, well, you'll know how this game plays. Controls are essentially identical, as well as the feel of flight, with the only real major difference being the lack of a tracking camera, or the option to hold down the Y or triangle input to track your current target, which I tend to use that feature quite a lot in games like this, so it did take a bit of adjusting to fly without it. You can use the right analog stick to pan the camera around your craft, but for me personally, that isn't really an option during the middle of a dogfight. This is honestly the only real miss for me in the entire game, though it's possible this feature could be added in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. Everything else though is spot on. The 3 craft currently available all feel great to fly, while at the same time having pretty clearly defined roles. There's an already solid amount of various special weapons to equip, ranging from things like bombs, semi-active guided missiles and gun pods, all the way up to lasers and railguns. Also, planes have parts that can be equipped to further increase their effectiveness, doing things like granting increased stall limits, guns range, acceleration, etc. And it's all brought together in a nice system where each different craft has various amounts of payload, air-to-air, or ground attack points to spend on equipment. Parts or upgrades simply cost weight and add to your payload, but the additional weapons you equip cost both payload and either air-to-air or ground attack points, forcing you to pick and choose carefully what you want to fly out with. Now, up until this point in the video, I've specifically referred to what we're flying in this game as craft, not aircraft, and for good reason. The game features zero-G combat. While you do spend a part of the limited campaign that we've seen so far in atmosphere, some of it also takes place in space. When this occurs, the flight model doesn't change drastically, but what does change, as you would probably expect, are the stall characteristics. In atmosphere, you can actually stall if your speed drops too low, which, if you're abusing the high-G maneuver mechanic and not being careful, can actually happen fairly easily. But in space, this doesn't happen, and it definitely has an impact on the feel and flow of dogfighting. When you can stop and 180 on a dime, fights tend to turn more into jousting matches of sorts, which, if you've played any sort of game that features space combat, you'll immediately recognize this pattern as familiar. Now, if this was the only sort of combat the game featured, it would probably get stale after a while, but when you vary between this and atmospheric gameplay, I think it gives a nice change of pace and sort of mixes things up a little. And keep in mind too that there's a lot more going on than just endlessly dogfighting enemies. Mission variety lines up with what you would expect from a game in this genre. I realize what we have now is a relatively small sample size, but with the missions we do have access to, there's a good mix of both air and ground targets with objectives that focus on either. In typical Ace Combat fashion, we even get a little taste of tunnel flying, and there's even a mid-mission choice you can make that changes what faction you're allied with and puts you on a different mission path altogether. The presentation of the game is also something I'm a big fan of. This low poly style looks great in my opinion, and it also runs fantastically, which even in this early release, the game does support high refresh rates, so I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that I had the option to run it at 144 Hz. There's also just something about the explosion effects that look really good to me. I think this dev has really nailed the visual vibe of indie Ace Combat perfectly. Let me know your thoughts on Carrier Wing Ypsilon down below, and as always, thanks for watching. Until next time.